Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to Hope for Your Heart. This is Pastor Calvin Corbett. So glad that you're joining us today as we're doing a series called Pondering the Proverbs. I love the book of Proverbs, and as we look at the book of Proverbs, I want to remind you that the book of Proverbs is not a book of promises, it's a book of principles. And so today I want to look on this subject of how to manage the mouth. You know, the average man will speak enough words in 1 year to fill 66 books, 800 pages long. That's right, he will speak 20,000 words a day. Now, if you're a woman listening to me today, you speak more words than your husband. He speaks 20,000 words a day, and you'll speak 30,000 words a day. Women are naturally better at communicating, and somebody says the reason that women have to speak more than men is because men don't listen, and women have to repeat themselves to us. Well, you know, we are a nation of talkers, right? Talk shows on TV, talk shows on the radio. We have talk shows that are podcasts. We have car phones, and we have all kinds of opportunities to talk. We like to talk. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, 55 million Americans will listen to 400,000 pastors deliver over 1 billion words. So when it's all said and done, it seems like there's a lot more said than done. Proverbs 13:3 says, "He who guards his mouth controls himself, but he who opens wide his lips will come to ruin." Now, self-control means that I'm able to control my tongue. Now, as I look at the book of Proverbs, the book of Proverbs has a lot of personal principles for us, and the book of Proverbs begins with us having an overview of the areas of our lives that are most important. There are 4 areas of our lives that the book of Proverbs will address. Number 1 is the area of our treasures, right? The areas of our finances. And if a man does not manage his treasures well, he'll never have enough resources for the important things of life. So Solomon spends a lot of time dealing with financial wisdom. Secondly, Solomon spends a lot of time dealing with time. You know, if a man doesn't manage his time well, he never has enough to accomplish what is most important in his life. So we must manage our treasures well. We must manage our time well, because all of us have the same amount of time. We have 168 hours a week. There's a third area that Solomon likes to cover in the book of Proverbs, and that is the matter of talent. Now, if a man does not manage his talents well, he never has enough skill to excel in what is most important in life. In other words, if we don't hone the talents that God gives us, if we squander those talents, we will never excel in the most important things of life. And then there's one other area that Solomon addresses. Throughout the book of Proverbs, we discover that the issue of the tongue is covered over and over and over again in the book of Proverbs. You see, if a man does not manage his tongue well, he will never have enough wisdom to be a blessing to everyone. Now, I've discovered that if you have trouble in one area, time, treasures, talent, or the tongue, it generally impacts or causes trouble in other areas. So improvements in one area will tend to improve all areas of your life. So as we look at how to stay out of trouble, especially when it comes to this matter of the tongue, let me give you some principles that are coming right out of the book of Proverbs to keep us out of trouble with our tongues. First of all, before you speak, think and pray. Proverbs 16:23 says, "The heart of the wise teaches his mouth and adds learning to his lips." In other words, the wise person is going to say, before I let this out of my mouth, let me have learning applied to what I'm about to say. Proverbs 16:23, intelligent people think before they speak. What they say is more persuasive. In other words, if I spend just a moment thinking about how I should say something and praying about what I should say, what I say is much more persuasive. And you think about trying to change the heart of somebody. If we're unkind in our words, we have a hard time trying to change the mind of somebody else. The very simple expression of you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. Proverbs 18:20 says that you have life and you have consequences for everything that you say. If that is true, we should spend some time thinking before we speak and praying before we utter. Proverbs 20:25 says, "It is a trap for a man to dedicate something rashly, only later to consider his vows." In other words, before we jump off and say, "I'm going to do this," be patient and don't rashly make a decision. Consider what you're going to vow to before you make the vow. Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even a fool, if he holds his peace, is counted wise, and he who shuts his lips is esteemed a man of great understanding." So as we speak, we should use words that are encouraging, but I call them using words of honey. So here's my question. Do I think and pray before I speak? I want you to spend just a moment and rating yourself on that. Have an honest, brutal, honest discussion with your mind about speaking. Do I think and pray before I speak? Every Sunday before I speak, I try to spend a lot of time praying and thinking about what I'm going to say. And so I would say on Sundays, I am really good at thinking and praying before I speak. So now I'm working on Monday. If Monday morning I could be really on that same mindset as I am on Sunday morning, what a blessing I could be to my family and those I come in contact with. So rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is, I really need to work on this one. 5 is, I'm doing okay, but I have some improvement to do on this one. 10 is where really I'm praying and thinking before I speak. So rate yourself, okay? So we've learned, first of all, according to the book of Proverbs, when it comes to this matter of staying out of trouble with our tongue, we must think and pray before we speak. Number 2, always speak truthfully and purposefully. You see, Proverbs deals with a lot of different kinds of dishonesty. Lying and deceit and exaggeration. I want to talk to you about the failure to be frank with people. And some say, well, isn't that a form of dishonesty? Well, when you don't really tell people the truth. Now, in theory, you would all agree that honesty is the best policy. But in practice, it often works out very different. We always have a reason why it's not a good time to be honest in our particular situation. Here's what I mean. If I told that person the truth, what would happen? They'd blow up, right? They might get mad at me. Why do we hold back the truth? I guess you could say because we're cowards. We'd rather do nothing, and that way we can avoid conflict. We want to keep the peace. We don't want to make waves. We don't want to rock the boats. But in relationships, many times you will not be honest with that person because you'd rather be passive. You'd rather keep the peace than shake them up. You'd rather keep the peace instead of making waves. But somebody who holds back the truth actually causes trouble. You are only delaying the inevitable. So I should speak truthfully and I should speak purposely. An honest answer is a sign of true friendship. That's Proverbs 24:26. Dan Fouts, the former quarterback of the San Diego Chargers, said, "Now that I'm retired, I want to say something that I've always wanted to say. As a quarterback, I want to say, all defensive linemen are sissies." He held that back until he retired, right? But before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you do criticize them, you're a mile away and you have his shoes on, said somebody in a humorous way. Well, when we think about using words of honey, it doesn't mean we compromise the truth. It's that we season the truth with kindness. Secondly, as you manage your mouth and as you speak to others, not only should we be truthful and purposefully, but we should be using words of honesty. If you live a lie, it's probably because you believed a lie and you will speak lies. This is a trap of the devil. Now, that's not me saying that. In case you're wondering where that came from, that came straight out of Scripture. John 8:44. If you're living a lie, it's because you're believing a lie and you will speak lies, and this is a trap of the devil. As I think about this, there was a cute little poem that was written one day, and it goes like this. One bright morning in the middle of the night, 2 dead boys got up to fight. Back to back, they faced each other, drew their swords and shot each other. Now the deaf policeman heard this noise and went and shot these two dead boys. If you don't believe this lie is true, just ask the blind man. He saw it too. And as you think about that, you talk about a self-contradictory poem. There it is. But if you are living a lie, it's because you are believing a lie and you will speak the lies. And this is a trap of the devil. In the end, people appreciate frankness more than flattery. Oh, and by the way, I didn't say that one either. Solomon said that in Proverbs 28:23. At the end of the discussion, people appreciate you being frank rather than just flattering them. Oh, yes, we use honey, kind words, but we don't compromise the truth. We use honesty and we use honey. So as you speak, ask yourself, am I speaking the truth with purpose? Or am I just speaking? I think some people just love to hear themselves speak. And so they speak a bunch of nonsense because they love to hear themselves speak. As we speak with purpose, we must also speak with honesty. Proverbs 24:26 says, an honest answer is a sign of a true friendship. That says that dishonesty is a lack of love. You don't lie to the people that you love. You level with them. You say, this hurts me to say it, and it hurts you to hear it, but we've got to deal with this. You know, you always tell the truth, and you don't have to worry about remembering everything that you said because you're always telling the truth. You know, as I think about intimacy with your spouse, I mean, how can you be really intimate with a person that you don't trust? You see, intimacy is the result of trust. It's the result of truth. Truth always results in conflict, unfortunately. Do you have to go through conflict in a relationship in order to have intimacy? Exactly. You see, if you've never had any conflict, you've never gotten to deal with deep issues. You've just been superficial. Scott Peck, in his book, The Different Drum, talks about the tunnel of chaos you have to go through from being one that is just superficial to one who is living in intimacy. He says it's a tunnel of conflict where you lay out all the cards on the table and you say, this is wrong. And this is what I need, and this is what you need. We argue and we work through it. And then out of that comes intimacy. You see, there's no intimacy without truth. And there is no truth without conflict. And now many of you are living in superficial relationships because every time you start to deal with an issue, there is a conflict and you back off and you say, forget it. I don't want to make waves. I want to be at peace. We won't deal with the issue and we'll pretend it's not there. What are you pretending not to know in your relationship right now? What area do you need to speak honestly and truthfully about? You discover that it will begin to set you free. Now, I got to be honest with you on this. As we look at speaking the truth and we look at this issue of being completely honest in how we communicate, oftentimes we are burnt by people. And that's why we kind of hold back, right? We don't want to deal with the pain of being hurt yet once again. But I want you to know that when you are pulling back because of fear of being hurt, you are hurting yourself even more because God has wired us for community. God has wired us in relationship. And that's why I tell my wife, I tell her often, I would rather go through the conflict with you than the conflict without you because God has brought us together. God has brought us together with the purpose of smoothing off the rough edges in each other's lives and for the purpose of experiencing intimacy. You see, when the gospel is given, I think one of the best examples of the gospel, if I could give a human illustration of what the gospel is, I would say it's in a healthy marriage between a man and a woman. You may understand, or you may wonder, why is marriage, traditional marriage, one man, one woman for one life, why is it so under attack? Because the enemy knows that if he can tear apart a relationship between a man and his wife, he will tear apart the solid foundation of what the gospel illustrates. A marriage between a man and a woman that is based upon unconditional love is an illustration of God's unconditional love for me. A marriage that can work through deep conflict and deep trouble and deep pain is a same relationship that God went through as he was separated from his son on the cross so that he could experience a relationship with us. You see, when we think about managing our mouths, it's so important that we speak the truth in love, which leads me to that third point of how we can manage our mouths. Let me quickly review, okay? Number one, we manage our mouths well when we decide to think and pray before we speak. Number two, we will manage our mouths well when we always speak truthfully and purposefully. And number three, we will manage our mouths well when we decide that we're going to go ahead and speak the truth in love and in peace. Well, here's a passage, Proverbs 12:18. Thoughtless words can wound as deeply as any sword, but wisely spoken words can heal. Proverbs 15:4. Gentle words cause life and health. Proverbs 12:25. A word of encouragement does wonders. Have you ever heard anybody justify their insensitivity by calling it candor? I just say what I feel. You know what the Bible says about that? The Bible says that's foolish. Proverbs calls that person a fool. Maybe somebody says, well, I just speak what's on my mind. Well, that's dumb and that's tactless. There's no virtue in that. That's actually a vice. The Bible says that you speak the truth in love. Everything we do is in love. Goodness and graciousness go together. You see, the good person is a gracious person. Gentle words can cause life and health. Now notice the power of gentle words. They cause life and they cause health. Good life and good health. You see, when you confront, you care enough to confront, but you confront in love because those words cause life and they cause health. So as we're speaking the truth in love and in peace, we should use words of healing and words of hope. Not hurtful words, but healing words. Not hopeless words, but hopeful words. Speak what could be instead of what should be. So I want to have you rate yourself, okay? As you rate yourself, I want you to ask yourself, do I speak with love and with peace? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is, I really need to improve on this speaking matter. I don't speak in love. I don't speak in truth. Maybe right in the middle at 5 or 6, or maybe you know there's some areas that you need to improve on. Maybe you realize that your words, the tone of your words are not bringing about peace, but they're bringing about turmoil. Jesus said, it's the things that come out of your mouth that come from your heart. The reason we speak words of harshness is because that's what's within our heart. Out of the heart are the issues of the mouth. In Proverbs chapter 18, verse 20, it says, a man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. You see, the way that is written means very little to you, but keep in mind that word belly, right? A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. As it's used in the book of Proverbs, it doesn't refer to the stomach, where you put food eventually. It refers to the inner part of man. And so, as we look at the paraphrase of this portion of the word, we could say the ability to give wise advice satisfies like a good meal. You know how satisfied you are when you're well fed? The ability to give wise advice satisfies like a good meal. So learn to develop this ability. Proverbs 16:24 says, pleasant words are as honeycomb, sweet to the soul, and health to our bodies. The opposite would be words of gossip. Gossip is like barnacles. In a leadership podcast by Stephen Mansfield, He compares how barnacles slow down sea vessels to the effect that gossip can have a slowdown effect on an organization or on a church. Some of the facts discussed in this podcast were this. Barnacles, they can slow down a ship by as much as 40%, reported by the U.S. Navy. That's why every once in a while our vessels have to come in to dry dock and they scrape off all those barnacles because barnacles will slow down the ship. Secondly, barnacles can get inside of the engine and can add weight to the hull. Adding weight to that vessel will also slow that vessel down. When you bring gossip into your life, not only does it slow you down, but it weighs you down. Barnacles can actually crack the hull of smaller vessels. Did you know that? As they build up, they have so much pressure, they can actually crack the hull of a smaller vessel. Gossip can crack a person and break a person. Barnacles also diminish the aerodynamics of a boat. Because the aerodynamics have been hindered, the boat is no longer smoothly sailing. It's lost its aerodynamics. The same is true in our lives when it comes to this matter of gossip. We lose that smooth flow of our lives as we go through the sea. The number of barnacles multiply rapidly during a constant time of reproduction. As we think about that, we can see that gossip, as it is repeated, it reproduces exponentially. This is a simple little way. As you repeat something that is negative about somebody else, that person tells somebody else in a matter of moments, a matter of minutes, that is spread everywhere. That the United States Navy spends $500 million a year scraping barnacles off ships. If barnacles are that dangerous to the ship, how much more is gossip dangerous to our lives? I want to encourage you, my friend. You can manage your mouth. James talks about this little member, the tongue, and it boasts great things. The tongue can set on fire. The tongue is compared to as a world of iniquity. James says, where do rumors come from and where do wars come from? Don't they come from your desires that reside within? You want something that you can't have it, and you set your heart on something that you can't have. I want to encourage you today. Manage that mouth, and you discover that God will set you free. What we say is so very important. Not only what we say, but when we say it and how we say it. One of the things I've learned through the years in managing in my mouth, there was a time where I would just let things fly out of my mouth, and I would spend a lot of time regretting what I would say. And as you look at the regrets of things that you say, Calvin Coolidge said, I have noticed that nothing I never said ever did me any harm. I've learned to hold back on something that I want to say if the timing's not right, and holding back if my attitude's not right, and holding back even if my vocabulary is not right. Sometimes a word will rush through my mind, and it's a descriptive word, and I know I probably shouldn't use it, but sometimes my mouth gets in motion before my mind engages, and it just goes out. Why does that happen? It's because we develop a bad habit. We develop the habit of speaking first and thinking second. So stop and pray. Think about what you're going to say. Use words of encouragement. Use words that will build up other people. Use words that can bring life and health to others. Well, thank you so much for listening to the broadcast today. If I can help you as I pray for you to manage your mouth well, maybe you have a prayer request that you'd like us to pray about. Every Thursday morning we have a team that prays at 5 a.m. We would love to pray for you. We would love to pray for a concern that you're carrying. Maybe your health, you're battling something with your health and you need somebody to pray for that. Would you send me a text and I'll add you to our prayer list, 252-267-2365. You can send it anonymously without your name if you want and say, hey, would you just pray about this? And I'll put you on our prayer list. I will personally pray for you, 252-267-2365. And then I really do want to encourage you to be worshiping the Lord somewhere in person. Come to Hickory Ridge Community Church. If we're too far of a drive for you, there are lots of really good churches in the Hampton Roads area. If you're battling issues of addiction, you're trying to get past or hurt, why don't you come join us for Celebrate Recovery this Sunday night at 6 o'clock at Hickory Ridge Community Church. Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Join me tomorrow as we continue on this pondering of the book of Proverbs. God bless you. I appreciate you tuning in. If you'd like to hear this broadcast again, you can have a free download at buzzsprout.com/1890557, or you can listen on Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast.
Hickory Ridge Community Church is located at 3320 Battlefield Boulevard South in Chesapeake, Virginia. Sunday service times are 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. We'd love for you to join us. For more information, go to hrcc7.org. And remember, no matter what you're going through, in Jesus Christ there is always hope for your heart.